Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. As you can see, I am home from my trip to Canada. I had a great time in Winnipeg, and while there I had an incredible opportunity to visit a fish farm. Not a tropical fish farm, but a food fish farm where Arctic Char are raised. It was really a fascinating adventure that I wanted to share with you guys. Unfortunately, it's also a very loud one. So in this video, I'm going to have to do some voiceover in the parts where the sound quality, even with a mic, just was too loud to listen to our host talk. Anyway, I think it's fascinating to learn about fish in any capacity, from food fish to farmed fish to wild fish to aquarium fish, and I hope you guys enjoy this as well. Let's get started. This is Peter David Waldner. He runs Lakeland Aquatics, a large Arctic char farm located outside of Winnipeg. He and his cousin Mark operate this converted pig barn as a biosecure food fish farm. The farm utilizes a multi-stage filtration system, one part of which is this 3,000-gallon sump. They utilize a return system from a large fluidized bed filter that we'll look at in a bit, as well as an ozone machine and a compressor to inject oxygen, as Arctic char come from extremely cold waters that have a very, very, very high level of dissolved oxygen. So it's of critical importance that they maintain this within the facility. They also keep quite a lot of oxygen cylinders on hand in case of emergency, as relatively quickly the fish will become stressed if they don't have the appropriate levels of oxygen. The fish are fed trout chow, as it's also a cold water diet with the appropriate levels of protein and fat for raising these fish. You enter the facility, you see large circular vats of about 200 gallons oriented near a large blue tube. These house the fish that are immediately ready for processing. As we look into the vat, you'll see quite a few that are extremely brightly colored. These are the males that are sort of confused and in spawning dress. Peter's going to catch one for us to see, as they are absolutely phenomenally beautifully colored. Although this is undesirable for processing, as it changes the color of the meat, as we'll hear in a little bit. But take a look at this big male Arctic char. What a stunner. The green tube you see behind the vat actually goes through the wall, through a short length of parking lot, and into the processing facility. As we look into this vat, you can see how large some of these fish are. Now, not quite full size, but certainly quite large and ready to be processed for feeding. As we look through the rest of the facility, you see these really long rectangular vats which hold thousands of these Arctic char in varying sizes. The largest of the fish are in these big rectangular ones, and they're not quite up to size yet, but these are the ones that are getting near being processed. It takes almost 3 years to get these fish from egg to a processable size. These are the food hoppers. They're on a timer, and they dump food in throughout the day in order to feed the fish. These are sediment filters placed throughout the facility just as an extra layer of defense to keep the water as clean and clear as possible. Water's forced through the chamber and then goes back out over the weir. And as we look up the hall, you'll see just how much sediment is collected from these filters. It's of critical importance that the water for these fish are kept as clean and clear as possible, as they are not at all tolerant of dirty water. As we continue to walk through the facility, you'll see fish up at the surface and very deep in the vats. They're pretty crowded, but they seem to do quite well, showing very, very little disease and almost no dead fish. Here you can see one of the hoppers dispensing food and what happens when they're fed. It's really pretty impressive to see how well maintained this facility is, despite being run by 2 men. The fish are fed with trout chow because there's not a good char diet on the market, and the trout chow has all the nutritional requirements for these fish. The recirculated water is pumped into the vats and through these trickle towers, essentially, which break the oxygen into smaller bubbles and help keep the fish super healthy. The facility uses some state-of-the-art machinery which will help monitor the oxygen levels either manually or through an app that can be monitored on their cell phone. If the oxygen levels drop too low, they get an immediate alert so that they can make sure that the fish are Being able to monitor the fish like this is of critical importance because as they feed, they use a lot of oxygen, and the levels can actually drop within the vats after feeding. So being able to monitor like this remotely really ensures that the fish are kept in the most ideal conditions possible. Each of these vats holds roughly 5,000 fish. A really, really impressive sight. As we move further up the facility, we come to where the eggs are hatched.
You guys are in luck because they started hatching, we call them the scouts. The scouts started coming about 2 days ago. So...
How do you harvest the eggs?
We strip.
You strip them?
Artificially. Char would never lay eggs in this environment. They
yeah, I
just
figured.
reabsorb them and they go again. Can you guys see those? There's some starting to hatch here in this area. I noticed this morning. So you can see them half hatched or...
Oh yeah, I do. Right there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh yeah, I do see it now. Okay. And as the days progress, they'll speed up. So you always get a couple at first. These are about 80 days old, so at 90 days is when they'll really...
But they're not like other fish
wiggle?
that need a temperature increase. This is the same water temperature as everything else? Or is
no,
this warmer?
I actually try to keep it as cold as possible.
Yeah.
We even will chill it in the new barn, keep it down at 2 Celsius.
Wow.
They just seem to do a lot better. Well, right now it takes about 80 days. You'll have a few scouts hatching, and then every day it'll speed up. And at day 90 is when they'll really, really hatch.
90 days.
Yeah. And
That's
at day
crazy.
120 is when I'll just cull them because they won't hatch.
That's too late.
It's normally deformed ones that are in the egg. And
can you reuse that as food, or it's just not worth the hassle?
yeah, I'll feed them to my shrimps or I'll feed them to my chickens, one or the other.
This one.
Yep, I see that one flailing around. My eyes couldn't focus on anything that small right yet.
That's cool. Peter hatches 130,000 eggs at a time a few times a year, checking them daily to remove any that are fungused. Because of the cold temperatures, it can take up to 4 days for fungus to even show, so he has a little bit of wiggle room, but he generally checks every day just to stay on top of things. The juvenile fish are kept in their own water source and grown to a size until they're ready to go into the recirculated water. They spend 6 months with their egg sac, and during that time don't require any feedings. As they grow to about this size, they're ready to be moved out into the smaller vats that are used for continuing to grow them. Once they get to a size where they can be added to the recirculating water, they're put in these 200-gallon vats where they can stay for about 4 months before they're split to prevent overcrowding, and then eventually moved into the large concrete vats that we saw earlier. They're so cool. You can really see the iridescence on them.
Here you can see that their gill plates are all nice.
Right. Look at their little faces. Next to the fish vats in a separate room is this absolutely enormous fluidized bed filter utilizing that K1 we saw in the beginning. It's over 12 feet deep and is just absolutely massive and the heart of the recirculating system. He also maintains vats of breedable fish. These guys are on the large side, and he keeps 2 males for every female in these vats. As we look around, we'll see some really fat females and some males coming into spawning color. The spawning colors of these fish are absolutely phenomenally vibrant.
So everything's kind of not set up. Normally I set up Monday because we process every Wednesday.
That's where they come through?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right there. No kidding.
So you can actually look into the fish barn. So the fish come down the pipe and we drown them in this tank here. And then we first got us to filleting.
Do you have a knockout agent or anything like that? Like you say, you drown. Also, as soon as there's no liquid oxygen and there's no oxygen in this thing, they'll die quickly.
Yeah, well, but what we actually do is we take out their gill.
Okay.
So they bleed. It's their main artery.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just that normally when we say we drown them, most people go, how do you drown a fish?
Yeah.
And then the next guy, he does the trimming. So he takes off the belly bones, the fins at the bottom, any excess fat or that I left on when I'm filleting. Then we have our pin boning machine. So if you run your finger across an Arctic Char fillet, you can feel 18 pin bones.
Right.
That machine will pull them out.
Well, that's convenient.
It is.
Had to be custom made specifically for that job?
No, we got it from Sweden, and they're big into fish processing, so that's what they do, that's what they make. So this thing kind of works like one of them shavers that goes around. Instead, this thing's not sharp. Shaver will cut. This will just kind of
Catch the bones and...
catch the bones underneath. As it's going past, the fillet passes underneath, and it'll catch, and just pull them all out. The vacuum's normally connected, it'll be running, and it'll just suck all the pin bones and get them into the vacuum out
It's
the
the
bottom.
little tiny bones,
Bones.
like I mean, they're in like
Like in a
salmon
jacket,
and
the
everything.
Well, yeah. And then, once there's a certain amount of trays until it's done, we package them in styro coolers, 10 pounds per cooler, put on a scoop of ice, and label them accordingly, tape them up, and they get shipped the very next morning to Winnipeg.
Okay.
And almost, what was the percentage? You said almost all of it went to Alberta, didn't it?
Yes, a very good majority of it goes to Alberta.
Yeah, because there's not enough high-end restaurants that'll
Yeah.
buy that product here.
Really?
Black
Char is considered a white tablecloth restaurant type of fish, and there's not that many in Manitoba as there is in Alberta.
Oh, you were talking about how the color of the meat is different based on spawning.
Yeah.
Can you say that again so I can hear it?
Well, as a female and a male get into spawning mode, they'll slowly start to color up. You can see them going pink and then orange and then bright orange and then bright orange. So basically what's happening is their meat is bright orange. However, via hormones, you're transferring that color onto their skin to try to attract the mate.
Right.
And then
That's
when you're
so
filleting
neat.
them at a certain time, you will get the pale fillets, is what we call seconds. And the grade A fillets are the nice and orange fillets.
Gotcha.
Now the female doesn't color up quite as much, but when you cut her open and she's full of eggs, she's got these bright golden colored eggs. Again, the eggs suck the color out of the meat so that they're nice and golden colored.
So you want to kind of catch them before they go right into spawning mode. That's the
Yeah.
ideal time to harvest. Okay.
And looking at the salmon and trout industry, they've actually done this, I guess, genetically modified breeding, where they've got fish that will not go into spawning mode.
They're
Yeah.
manipulating the hormones to not
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
But with char, we're not quite there yet, and I don't know if we'll ever be, because it's just a niche market, and getting government funding for somebody to actually go and start research on it, you know.
Well, once you go from, like, before you even see the new facility, once you go from this facility to that facility, you can produce X out of here. Is it double you'll be able to do out of that building? Or, like, what's the
It
percentage?
goes by tonnage, so that one's considered a 60 ton.
Okay.
That one will be considered a 204 ton. So if everything works as it does on paper,
Yeah.
yeah, we should be able to push out 204 ton.
Yeah.
There's like 5 layers of plumbing in this building.
Oh, I don't
So we went down 20 feet with the first one for gravity flow, and we came up, it didn't matter, we just put in our plumbing.
I don't remember these. I remember the hexagon ones that all.
Yeah, those are what we call our conditioning tanks. So here they'll be
Okay.
bigger, and there'll be 3 of them. So we'll come here in the morning, and we've got the one pipe coming where we'll pull a plug, and these dead fish will come right up.
The
And we'll
live
just have
fish
a
will just
net
swim
ready.
away.
Yeah, the nice, healthy, strong fish, they don't, I notice fish don't like to dive straight down in a black hole.
Yeah.
They never do.
No, they never do.
They don't. So we're all done with concrete, so our next move in the next couple of weeks is starting to add the toys. So we got a storage, there's 4 semi-loads of toys is what I call it. There's the LHOs and all the control panels.
Yeah.
So every single one of these tanks will be separate. It'll have a separate oxygen system, separate ozone,
That for
and
your
separate
biosecurity?
control. It's not for biosecurity, it's the fact that we'll have 100,000 babies in here.
Right.
They don't want their oxygen, they need their oxygen at a certain percent.
It's easier to
And
control
they'll use
each
it.
one individually.
Yeah. And it'll all be automatic. So we'll just get onto the control panel. We want the oxygen to stay at 7 parts per million. So as you're feeding these fish, they jump, they splash, their metabolism speeds up, their heart rate speeds up. That means they need more oxygen, right? Mm-hmm. They're also splashing, that throws out oxygen.
Yeah.
So the oxygen will drop about half an hour after feeding. This system's supposed to keep it at 7. So it'll just open a solenoid valve and add more.
When complete, this building will do everything from grow out to processing, and I wish them the very best of luck. Now, not only does Peter produce these amazing food fish, but he's also a guppy breeder who's 3-year-in-a-row champion. And I'm going to show you some of his personal aquariums. He maintains about 60 or so personal aquariums in his home, and he even keeps some shrimp tanks at the fish farm. He was a very gracious host, and I just wanted to thank him again for taking so much time out of his day to share his various passions with us. As always, thank you guys for your continued support. I hope you enjoyed seeing something a little bit different. When I travel, I really enjoy getting to see what makes various areas special, and Manitoba is known for its agriculture, so I thought this was especially fitting. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos.